Whilst we are in the midst of the very long A-Leagues off-season, there has been plenty going on when it comes to the transfer window, and in today's video we are going to go through every single A-League men's team and look at the ins and outs that they have made so far. Alphabetical order, let's start with Adelaide United, who had a disappointing campaign last season. Bart Vriends joining the club, Dutch defender. We've had some fantastic Dutch players feature in the A-League over the years. Archie Goodwin is an interesting signing as well. He's got a lot of pressure on his young shoulders, replacing the likes of Hiroshi Ibusuki and Nestor Irankunda, who were the main goal threats for Adelaide last season. They're both departing the club. And Luka Ivanovic already at the club. It's going to be interesting to see, who takes that starting striker role for the Reds. Is it Goodwin? Is it Ivanovic? Maybe both of them together as well. Isaias also re-signing for the upcoming campaign for the Reds. Let's talk about the new boys, Auckland FC. Very excited to have Auckland joining the A-League men's competition this coming season. Plenty of local New Zealand talent joining the club, which is great to see. And some key signings, a couple of key ones that I've underlined here in Dan Hall and Scott Galloway, two players who have experience winning A-League championships. And they're with a championship winning coach, of course, in Steve Corica. We'll keep an eye on who else Auckland is able to bring in for the remainder of the transfer window. Of course, they are still building their squad ahead of their inaugural campaign. Callan Elliott, Champness, two interesting players returning to the A-League. Keen to see them back in the league, of course, as well. Brisbane Roar, again, another one of these teams who had a disappointing campaign last time around, and some fascinating signings up to this point. Van der Sarg, Warland and Halloran all joining from the Reds. Wellington Shaw is an interesting signing as well. Curious to see how he goes fitting into that Brisbane Roar midfield. And some key departures also. Tom Aldred leaving the club, the captain of the side. He was such a key figure in defence for Roar over the last few years. He has left, as well as fellow defender Kai Truan joining Melbourne City. Some re-signings in Macklin Freak and Keegan Jelicic, who returns on loan. Let's talk about the reigning champions, back-to-back champions, my team, Central Coast Mariners. Of course, no surprise that Mariners were going to be receiving plenty of interest for their players after they won the treble last time around. But the key departures are Dan Hall, Max Ballard, Danny Vukovic. They were all regular starters for the Mariners in that past treble-winning season. But Mikael Docker is such a key re-signing for the Central Coast Mariners. He's going to be a very, very pivotal player heading into the next few seasons for the Mariners. Very, very important that they managed to tie Docker down to a contract for the next few years. MACARTHUR FC, plenty of departures from the Bulls. The big one for me is Rafael Borges Rodriguez. He secured a move to Coventry City in the English Championship. And the ins, Luke Bratton is an interesting one, a key figure in the Sydney FC midfield for the last few years, joining rivals MACARTHUR FC. Marin Yakalish, Liam Rose, who's back at the Bulls once again, and Chris Economides also joining MACARTHUR. Let's talk about Melbourne City, who last season were a little bit mediocre by their high standards. They're still taking their time building their squad, just a couple in so far, but Kai Truan and Marco Tilio, two positive signings. Tilio returning once again on loan from Celtic. But there's a bit of a reshuffle, especially across midfield, defence, well, just about every position. Jamie McLaren, Curtis Good, Nuno Reis departing as well, some of the key departures. And, especially curious to see how Max Caputo goes. The young striker was given some decent game time last season, and so far they haven't really signed an out-and-out striker. Melbourne City. We'll see if they do bring in someone to, as a like-for-like replacement for McLaren, or do they stick with youngster Max Caputo? That'll be interesting to see at Melbourne City. Their rivals, Melbourne Victory, they have appointed a former City head coach in Patrick Isnorbo, which has caused plenty of stir in Melbourne. But I like some of the signings that they have made so far. Josh Rawlins is a decent signing from Perth Glory. He was at Perth Glory on loan last season. Jing Reese, he was on loan at Central Coast Mariners. He has joined the club, as well as Reno Piscopo. Piscopo, fascinating one. He's a player who, when he's fit and when he's firing, fantastic talent. And hopefully he does stay injury-free for Victory fans heading into this next season. But some key departures as well at Melbourne Victory. Jake Brimmer leaving, and Damien De Silva as well, who was one of the best central defenders last season in the A-League men's. He has departed Victory. Next up, let's talk of our Newcastle Jets, who this seems to be a regular occurrence for Jets over the last few years. Plenty of rotation, and they've taken a bit more of a youthful approach, as they did last year as well, signing some of their academy products. Alex Shushnia is also joining from Perth Glory, Scarcella joining in from loan from Sydney FC as well, and of course we knew Jason Hoffman was retiring, the likes of O'Neill, Piscopo, Moragas, they're departing as well, so a little bit of a reshuffle at Newcastle Jets once again. Curious to see how Coach Robbie Stanton goes in his second year in charge at the Jets. Perth Glory, again another one of these teams going through a massive reshuffle. David Zrilich, the new head coach at Perth Glory. Josh Risdon and Brandon O'Neill returning to the club. I think those are important signings, that, you know, providing that experience, because you look at the list of players signing there, a lot of these may be unfamiliar names to regular A-League fans, players from NPL level, from Perth Glory's own academy as well. Daryl Latchman, a key departure for me. He was a key cog in Glory's defence over the last few years. And Sydney FC as well, one of these teams who had a good season last time around, one game away from the grand final. Just a couple in so far, but I'm sure Ufuk Talay is planning many more in the remaining months of the transfer window. But Robert Mack is probably the biggest departure for them, as well as Luke Bratton. Mack was really good for Sydney over the last couple of years. Jake Goodwood-Reich, of course, securing a move over to the MLS as well. So we'll keep an eye on the ins there, especially for Sydney FC. It'll be interesting to see if they do bring in some big name players, as they generally like to do. Wellington Phoenix, of course, a fantastic story last year. Just an incredible campaign for Wellington, finishing second. No ins to report just yet, but of course Alex Paulson, the goalkeeper, coming off a fantastic season, securing a move to the Premier League side, AFC Bournemouth. Pennington joins Perth Glory, and striker Oscar Zavada has departed the club, but the re-signing of Costa Barbarouses is a very, very important one. He was fantastic last time around for the Knicks. Western Sydney Wanderers, again, no ins to report at this point. Some outs across the squad. I mean, getting rid of some players who maybe weren't contributing too much in regards to, you know, regular game time. But Dylan Parias has left for Adelaide, Tate Russell for Western United, but Marcelo is probably the biggest departure. Again, the captain of the side last season. He was really solid at the back over the last couple of years at Wanderers. Alan Stadjic, now the head coach at Western Sydney. Be interesting to see how he goes about in regards to his recruitment over the next few months. And then last but not least, Western United, John Aloisi, again taking a bit more of a youthful approach, signing some academy players, but I do like the signing of Hiroshi Ibusuki. I think that could be the missing piece for Western United, who really struggled to score goals last year. They've also moved on some players. Risdon, as we mentioned earlier, he's headed off to Perth Glory. Lustica, he was part of the championship winning team a couple of years ago, as well as Lockie Wales. They have departed the club. Seb Pasquale re-signing for the upcoming season. So that is a big recap and overview of all the transfers we have seen so far as of this date, Sunday the 7th of July. Let me know your thoughts on how your team is shaping up heading into the upcoming season. Of course, it's still a few months away, and I'll make sure to keep you guys up to date in regards to all the transfer news across the A-League men's competition over the next few months. Thanks so much for tuning in. Drop a like on the video. My name's Lockie, this is Coastwatch Football, and I'll see you in the next one.